Turkey has been extended an invitation to join the BRICS group of nations as a partner country, according to Trade Minister Ömer Bolat. The move comes as Ankara continues its delicate balancing act between deep-rooted ties with the West, particularly NATO, and its growing desire to strengthen relations with the East through emerging economic blocs. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. Welcome viewers to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. In recent months, Turkey has expressed a clear interest in joining BRICS, a group that has steadily expanded its influence in global geopolitics and economics. The alliance, originally composed of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has recently welcomed additional members, Ethiopia, Iran, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates, transforming the group into a broader coalition of emerging economies. With this expansion, BRICS has positioned itself as a counterweight to Western-led institutions such as the G7 and the IMF. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan underscored Turkey's seriousness about the initiative by personally attending the latest BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia, hosted by President Vladimir Putin. Turkish officials confirmed ahead of the summit that Ankara had already begun the formal process of applying for full membership. Speaking in an interview with private broadcaster TVNet, Trade Minister Bolat clarified Turkey's current position. As for Turkey's status regarding BRICS membership, they offered Turkey the status of partner membership, he explained. He emphasized that this is not a final position but rather, a transition process in the organizational structure of BRICS, suggesting that partner status could eventually pave the way for full membership. Erdogan, meanwhile, has taken care to frame Turkey's interest in BRICS as an economic opportunity, not a geopolitical pivot. He has repeatedly reassured Western allies that Ankara's NATO commitments will remain intact, and that cooperation with BRICS should not be viewed as a substitute for Turkey's Western partnerships. Instead, Turkish officials describe the potential membership as a pragmatic step to open new avenues for trade, investment, and economic integration with some of the world's fastest-growing economies. A notable development at the Kazan summit was the formal introduction of a new membership tier, the partner country status. This category, outlined in the summit's official declaration on October 23, offers states a formalized but limited role within the bloc, short of full membership but beyond that of a casual observer. It is a recognition of Ankara's interest, though it falls short of the full integration Turkey had been seeking. While Bolat refrained from confirming whether Ankara has accepted the offer, sources within Erdogan's ruling AK party have hinted at Turkey's dissatisfaction. Speaking to Reuters earlier this month, one official noted that partner country status may not fully align with Turkey's ambitions, suggesting Ankara's ultimate goal remains full membership rather than a symbolic or halfway measure. Turkey's interest in BRICS highlights its broader foreign policy strategy, leveraging relationships both East and West to maximize political and economic benefits. As global power centers shift and the BRICS bloc gains weight, Ankara seems determined not to be left behind in shaping the multipolar world order. For centuries, Turkey has stood at the crossroads of civilizations. Geographically, politically, and culturally, it has always occupied a unique position between the East and the West. The Bosphorus Strait, which cuts through Istanbul, is more than just a waterway connecting the Black Sea to the Mediterranean, it is a living metaphor for Turkey's dual identity. On one side lies Europe, with its institutions, democracies, and Western alliances. On the other lies Asia, with its vast markets, emerging powers, and alternative models of governance and development. Few nations in the modern world are as deeply entangled in both worlds as Turkey. It is against this backdrop that the news of Turkey being offered partner country status by BRICS carries such weight. On the surface, it might appear as just another diplomatic development. Yet in reality, it is an event steeped in symbolism, strategy, and historical resonance. It represents not only Turkey's ongoing struggle to redefine its role in an increasingly multipolar world but also BRICS' ambitions to broaden its influence beyond its founding members. To understand why this matters, one must first appreciate how Turkey perceives its own destiny. The country has long been a member of NATO, anchoring the alliance's southeastern flank. Since the Cold War, it has played a critical role as a buffer between Russia and the West, as a gateway for energy corridors, and as a bridge for military and intelligence operations. Simultaneously, Turkey has nurtured its relationships with Muslim-majority nations, its Turkic neighbors in Central Asia, and powerful emerging economies such as China and Russia. This duality has never been easy to manage. Ankara's Western allies often view its outreach to Moscow or Beijing with suspicion, while Eastern partners sometimes doubt Turkey's willingness to distance itself from the West. Yet Turkey, under President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has leaned into this complexity, presenting it as a strength rather than a weakness. "We are not forced to choose between East and West," Erdogan has declared on more than one occasion. "We are Turkey, and we chart our own path." It is precisely this philosophy of strategic autonomy that explains Turkey's growing interest in BRICS. For Ankara, membership in such a bloc is not about abandoning NATO or the European Union, it is about expanding options. By joining BRICS, Turkey could tap into new trade networks, gain access to financing from the new development bank, and strengthen ties with countries that control significant portions of global energy reserves and production. But for BRICS, the invitation extended to Turkey is no less meaningful. The group, which began as a loose association of 5 economies, has evolved into a platform that increasingly challenges Western dominance in global institutions. Its recent expansion to include Ethiopia, Iran, Egypt, and the UAE underscores its ambition to become a truly representative voice of the global South. Bringing Turkey into the fold, even as a partner, rather than a full member, would be a major strategic coup. Turkey is not only a NATO member but also a G20 economy, a regional military power, and a nation with deep influence in both Europe and the Middle East. Yet the offer of partner status also reflects BRICS' caution. The bloc is still working to define its institutional structure, and full membership carries political weight that not all current members may be ready to extend to a NATO country. The partner status, therefore, acts as a halfway house, a way of welcoming Turkey without fully committing. For Ankara, however, this raises an important question: is partner enough, or does Turkey need to push harder for full membership to demonstrate that it belongs at the BRICS table? The debate is not only about diplomatic labels. It touches on fundamental questions about Turkey's foreign policy identity. For decades, Ankara's strategic ambition was framed around joining the European Union. The accession talks, which began formally in 2005, have long since stalled, leaving Turkey disillusioned with Europe's reluctance to fully embrace it. At the same time, relations with Washington have been strained by disputes over defense systems, support for Kurdish groups in Syria, and differing approaches to Russia. These tensions have pushed Turkey to diversify its alliances, seeking opportunities that reflect its status as an emerging power in its own right. It is no coincidence, then, that Erdogan chose to attend the BRICS summit in Kazan in person. Hosted by Russian President Vladimir Putin, the summit symbolized the deepening partnership between Moscow and Ankara despite their competing interests in places like Syria and the Caucasus. For Erdogan, showing up was both a message and a statement. Turkey is serious about engaging with BRICS, and it expects to be taken seriously in return. The offer of partner country status is thus the first tangible outcome of these efforts. Trade Minister Ömer Bulut described it as part of a transition process within BRICS, suggesting that the door to full membership remains open. Yet the ambiguity of the proposal has not gone unnoticed in Ankara. Officials within the ruling AK party have already signaled disappointment, telling Reuters that partner status falls short of Turkey's expectations. The implication is clear: Turkey wants more than symbolic gestures, it wants a seat at the table. In many ways, this moment captures the essence of Turkey's foreign policy dilemma in the 21st century. The country is too powerful, too strategically placed, and too ambitious to simply be a passive player in international affairs. But it is also too enmeshed in existing Western structures to break away entirely. The question, then, is how Turkey can maximize its influence without compromising its commitments. Partner status with BRICS might be the first step in that direction, but whether it is enough remains to be seen. As we dive deeper into the story, it becomes clear that this development is more than a matter of diplomatic protocol. It is part of a broader realignment of global power, one in which nations like Turkey are no longer content to play supporting roles in a Western-dominated script. Instead, they seek to write their own chapters in the emerging narrative of a multipolar world. And BRICS, with its growing membership and ambitious agenda, provides an increasingly attractive platform for doing so. The road ahead, however, will not be straightforward. Turkey's decision will be closely scrutinized not only by its BRICS counterparts but also by NATO allies who may interpret closer ties with Moscow and Beijing as a betrayal. Likewise, BRICS itself will need to decide how flexible it is willing to be in accommodating a country that straddles two worlds. The stakes are high, and the consequences will shape not only Turkey's future but also the trajectory of the BRICS bloc and, by extension, the global order.